So let's talk a little bit about space heaters.
Okay.
I feel like, as a firefighter, just in an educational standpoint, I feel like we do a lot of education on space heaters and what they can possibly do. I feel like we see this in the news a lot as well. I mean, first of all, what is a space heater?
Space heater is generally a portable device used to place in a room to generate heat. They come in many forms, fueled, oil-based, ceramic. Electric is probably the most common. You saw the big fire that we had up in the Northeast recently. It killed several people due to space heaters. And I think that in general terms, space heaters are effective. And I don't think that space heaters in and of themselves are the problem. It's a human behavioral issue, okay? And, if you think about it, human beings we're the only species on the planet that can change our environment to suit us. We've got AC in our cars, right? So we want to be comfortable, so we'll put that in, but we don't always follow manufacturers' recommendations and safety protocols. In the office space, we find a lot of space heaters in offices. Here at the city, we found some. I can go all over town and I can find various people putting those space heaters on. The problem is usually the proximity of those devices to combustible materials. Now, when I say combustible materials, I'm talking some of the more solid objects, the cloths, fabrics and that type of thing. So in offices, we've got lots of paper products, and offices can tend to be small. So typical safety guidelines put out by the National Fire Protection Association said have that thing 3 feet from anything else. And I can guarantee you can go anywhere in town and you can find a space heater under somebody's desk trying to keep their legs warm, or next to papers, next to fabrics, next to curtains in office spaces and so forth. So it can cause a lot of problems. At the home, we put them in and we do a real cardinal no-nos. We hook them up to an extension cord. And why do we do that? Because we want them closer to where our beds are or where we're sitting. The worst thing you can do is use a space heater at night. When you go to sleep, those things should be turned off and unplugged, okay? You can't control what happens. You don't know what's going on. If you're sleeping, you're out of it, and if a pet goes by, can knock it over. And even if you have the tip-over switch where the unit tips over and it kills the power, it's still got heat to it.
Still warm.
And if you've got carpet or fabric right there, it is going to ignite that and cause a fire.
Right.
I don't know the exact circumstances surrounding the Northeast, but we've seen space heaters in town that are too close to beds, curtains, and so forth, and have ended up causing structure fires.
Right.
Now, when that happens, that really decreases your ability to get out of your house if you're in the room of origin, right? So it's a big issue. So it's not that these devices are bad. It's really the use of them.
So you had mentioned, turning them off before you go to bed, never leaving it on. Did the same rules apply for like a heating blanket or a heating pad? I know a lot of times people will put those in bed with them and warm it. I mean, are those any safer or?
I would always use caution. Now in my business, over the years, and you guys too, you've seen a mixed bag of things that have occurred that cause fires. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that, with the exception of central air and some devices and some other things, you really shouldn't keep things like those plugged in, especially at night when you're asleep. I can see using those devices, during the day when you're awake, you're watching TV, you have a heating blanket on. I think that's perfectly acceptable. But I was just having a conversation with my father about this, and he said, when I was a kid, he lived up in Andrews, Texas, and the winter came. They had fireplaces going, and they had space heaters, electrical space heaters. And he said, but we unplugged them at night. And I said, well, how did you keep warm? He said, we used blankets and quilts back then. We didn't have central air.
Right.
I think that you need to just be very, very careful about that.
Right. Okay. Well, in 26 years at the fire department, one of the fires that sticks out the most in my mind, and all this time was due to a space heater, and it was a gas fired back then. It had more gas fired, and it was a woman that had on a long. And there was nothing around it. She had put it together safely that there was nothing within 3 feet of it, but she had on a long house coat and was standing there trying to get warm beside it, and it ignited the house coat, and it went from there. But that's one of the fires that sticks out most in my mind, and it was a space heater that was the origin, was the cause.
So if someone's going to use space heaters, I think, I mean, obviously, as long as they're being produced and sold, and somebody's cold, they're going to try to be comfortable, right? So they're going to go buy them and they're going to use them. How, you know, if they are going to use them, what is, I know what earlier you said you were talking about manufacturer specifications. What do they, you know, what do they, if they are going to use it, what are some do's? And then what, we already know the don'ts, but how do they use it safely?
First and foremost, follow the manufacturer's recommendations. And in the absence of any literature telling you on spacing a minimum of 3 feet, that's the national guidance. Get units that are listed by a testing agency, UL. You know, that's probably the most common one, ASTM, ASME, all these types. Make sure they have a thermostat on. Okay, if they get to a certain time, you can adjust a thermostat and have them cut off. Make sure they have an auto shut off on them, right? Don't put them in exits. One of the things that we see a lot is somebody will have a space heater in their room, but then they have a window unit in their window and they can't get out their window anyways.
Wow.
So I'm not a big fan of window units
Right.
for that purpose because they're blocking your secondary egress, and you really may need that if your door becomes blocked. Don't put them onto extension cords, or I don't think space heaters really are good use to put on those electrical strips. They need to be plugged directly into a wall.
Okay.
When you don't do that, you build up what's called resistance heating. So you've got electricity looking for a place to go, and it's going to find a weak point, and that can usually end up causing a fire. And then, you know, like I said, turn them off and unplug them when they're not in use, especially at night.
Cool. Yeah. Good.
I mean, that would be the best thing. But, you know, look for those things. I think, and I believe manufacturers spend a lot of money in research and development and engineering to make good safety practices. And I think, once again, they build good products. Right. You can type in space heater recalls, and you can always see if, hey, something was built with a defective thermostat or something like that. So if you're looking at one of the big stores here in town and you want to find one, and you like the way it looks and what it does, get online, get on your phone, whatever.
Do some research.
See if there's any recalls on it, just to make sure that the device is manufactured safely, and then follow basic safety protocols.
Okay.